We have a few ways to access the new DAC Schema browser. The first way is on a data entry screen. So let's say we're looking at the bills and adjustments data entry screen in accounts payable. I can come up here to tools and go right here to DAC Schema browser. If I do that, it's going to open up a new tab here, and it's going to take me to the primary data access class for that screen, which in this case is AP Invoice up on the top. Now, before we explore the other ways that you can access this DAC Schema browser, let's dig through and take a look at all the stuff that we're seeing here. And let's stay focused on AP Invoice. First, on the top, you can see that we have some links that will jump us to the various sections. The first section is the definition, which is this stuff right up on the top, including a summary. Then we've got fields, which you can see up here. Next is incoming references. So I can either click this or scroll all the way down through all the fields, and I'll see incoming references here. And then last, I've got outgoing references down on the bottom, and that is the end of the page. So outgoing references up here. Just click here on definition, and I can come back up to the top of the page. In this case, AP Invoice is based off of the AP register, so I've got a base data access class. I've got a display name for it, the namespace, and since I clicked to this off of the bills and adjustment screen, that is it's a data access class for this screen. It's also the primary data access class for these other screens that are listed here. So if we went to one of these other screens and did tools, DAC Schema browser, we would have been taken to the AP Invoice data access class as well. Although, as I say that, I don't think it would make sense to be the primary for the checks and payments. So let's take a look at that. Let's click on this screen right here. You see it opens a new tab on the top. Takes us to the checks and payments screen, and let's test that theory. Let's go to Tools, DAC Schema browser, and it looks like it's actually AP payment. So I'm not sure what the primary screens thing is down here, but you know what it must be talking about? It must be talking about the base data access class, AP register, which is used for payments and bills, and what the primary screens are for that base data access class. That must be what's going on there. So let's go back here, and this part, I haven't been able to figure out what's going on here. This says customization. It says that this is customized, and I'm not sure why, because in my environment, if I go over to customization projects, I don't think that I have a customization out here that's affecting AP invoices. So I might be missing something here, but I'm not sure exactly what's going on with customization, but we're going to see that when we get down to the fields as well. But some nice summary info on the top, and then we've also got a summary right here that tells us about this data access class, and then we get down in here to the fields. So first thing we notice is it does list the primary keys first. So the yellow key is a primary key. If you hover over that, you can see primary key. Then the gray key is a foreign key, which you can also see when you hover over. If I hover over this, it just says foreign key. So the two primary keys for the AP Invoice data access class are doc type and ref number. Then I can also see some additional information. So this is a CAR3, 3-character database field type. It's also got a display name. So I really like how we have this display name right here, because you might have noticed before that when you drop a field onto a generic inquiry and then you run that generic inquiry, if you don't override the caption, it somehow has some intelligence to know what the display name should be. Well, that is stored in the data access class, and we're now seeing that right here in the display name column. So that's kind of nice that we can see that. Another thing that I like is we can click on this. We see some of that same information. There's the type again, but down here it's got some extra information. Here's another real useful thing here. It tells us the database values for the type, and sometimes when you're doing filtering you need to use these database values, and we've got that listed right here: INV, ACR, ADR, PPM, etc. So I love how that's listed right here. Then if we go further down, we've got a few different things. We've got default navigation, and I think that has something to do with this foreign reference. So I'm not exactly sure why it's called default navigation. You see if I click on this, it's also showing the foreign reference here. It's got default navigation again up here. It makes more sense to me on something like this. If I wanted to use this field, I'm probably going to want to join over to the account. This is a GL account field. Not sure again why it's called default navigation. Although as I'm thinking about it, what might happen here is this default navigation might tell us when it's going to automatically be a hyperlink when we drop it on a generic inquiry. Let's try that in a minute here. But let's keep moving through this. We've also got customized. So here's related, I think, to customized up here. I'm not sure why I'm getting this in my specific environment. But let's see if I click on this. It's telling me that I've got this customization, which again, I assume that's maybe a customization project, which I don't have here. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. Maybe, actually, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe something with my environment. But so we got customized. Scroll down further here. Here's another useful thing, I think. It says if it's non-existent in the database. So this is a calculated field. And I can also click on it, see it up here. And there's a number of these fields in data access classes, and this confuses people a lot of times, where they want a total or they want to use a field that's probably totaling up something else. I'm trying to hunt and fight one. I guess the best one I can see here would be this one, this discounted DAC total. So this would be totaling up some other information, and it's not a field that's just stored in the database. So it's nice. I really like that they highlight this. It's telling us if it's something that's calculated. Then I also like this one in red. It's telling us if it's obsolete. I was actually just looking at this earlier this week for a client. I was doing some discount reporting, and I was curious what this field was. And this is telling us right here that this is no longer used. So the discount information is stored somewhere else. So I like these different labels on this. We've got default navigation, non-existent in DB, obsolete, etc. We've got all the field types. We've got the display values, and then we've also got some foreign references over here. Now these foreign references, let me scroll back to the top. These foreign references I think are interesting on a field by field basis. Where I think they're more practically useful is when you get down to incoming references and outgoing references. So these are basically that same information, but we're looking at it at a higher level, at a table level, rather than a column level. And this is telling us incoming references. These are data access classes that you would utilize, you would want to join from. So I might be using AP Tran, and I want to get some information about AP invoice. I'm coming in from AP Tran, and then down here, outgoing references. These actually would be the tables that would be listed up here on the foreign references. So these are the tables where I might be on AP invoice. I'm looking at a field, and I want to go out to another data access class like account. So I'm looking at the AP account ID field in AP invoice, and I want to join out to account to get more information about that. So I've got both incoming references and outgoing references. Now, let's see, I think, yeah, that does it for what's on the page here. I want to talk a little bit more about incoming and outgoing references, but before I do that, let's kind of round out this page and let's look up here at the preview source data. And let me go back. Let's go up to fields before I do that, and then let's click this. You can see it pops open in a new tab. Look at that. I can actually see the data that's sitting in that data access class without even creating a generic inquiry. And one thing I really like here is we're seeing both the field name, so like doc type, and the display name type, or ref NBR and reference NBR. Here it is. Doc type is the database field name in parentheses, and the display name is listed first. So that's kind of a cool way to see which ones have special display names. You can see like this field does not, but these fields do. This one does not. I think that's kind of an interesting way of looking at it without even having to create a generic inquiry. I can scroll across here and see all the columns with both their database, or I really should say data access class field names. Although, you know, for all these ones that don't have the non-existent in DB, which I would say is the majority of them, those are also going to be the database field names. At least 95+% of the time. So I can just scroll across and look at that, and we can also test that thing I was looking at earlier with the default navigation. So ref NBR, AP account ID, it looks like, yep, that is what's controlling those hyperlinks. So that default navigation is telling us when I drop this field onto a generic inquiry, is it going to have a hyperlink on it? And this is then telling us what it's going to drill us out to. So like AP account ID, if I click on this one, it's going to drill me to the account table. And I was expecting to see the primary screen GL account listed here. I guess it's not. I think in this case, if I click on this, it should be taking me, oh no, it does take me to account by period. Aha, interesting. So yeah, interesting. So that's telling me what the primary screen is. So if it wants to drill me to account, it's going to drill me to the primary screen for that. That's very interesting. I did not realize that. Let's test another one of these. Let's see if I do ref MBR, it wants to take me to AP register, which has multiple primary screens. Let's see what happens. This one takes me to bills and adjustments, which I would have expected there. I wonder though if we find one, see if we can do a filter. Let's try finding a prepayment. I don't have any in this environment. Well, but I think you get the idea. We've got some default navigations here that are determining the hyperlinks, whether or not a field is a hyperlink. Alright, so I think that preview is pretty nice. I can just quickly come out here and not even create a generic inquiry. I can see the data that's in that data access class. Alright, so I mentioned, let me come back to AP invoice. So I mentioned that I want to talk a little bit more about incoming references and outgoing references. Let's come down here to incoming references. And let's go out here and create a generic inquiry. And let's see, I'll just call test. Let's put it on the menu. And let's use this AP invoice data access class. So this is the second way that we can access the Schema browser. You'll see now when you add a table, it's now a hyperlink. So I can click on this table, see it pops open a new tab, and we're taken to the same place. So that's another way I can access it. While we're talking about that, let's show yet another way. First we accessed it here, but we can also use the good old inspect element trick. We can click on, let's say, the type field. Now this has been here for a little while. We have the drop-down values right here. We can look at them this way. But then we also now have this hyperlink to the Schema browser. So yet another way to access, in this case, the same data access class. Now of course that wasn't that interesting on this screen. Probably more interesting to do, let's do inspect element on inventory ID. So here we can see this is coming from another data access class. So it is specific to the data access class that you click on. Now also on the left hand side you can browse it. You can see all the data access classes just by scrolling up and down. You can see we're in the PX Objects AP workspace. You first pick a workspace, then go to the data access class. You could even search here. So let's say AP invoice, and it'll do a filter and search them that way. So this is, I think, another really useful thing about this Schema browser. I don't have to open up SQL Management Studio and browse the database tables. I can just browse right here the database tables and even do a search on finding a specific table. Nice, quick and easy on the left hand side. Alright, so let's come back to the generic inquiry. And let's say we're adding this new table. Now here's something that we've also had. This is not new to 2021 R2, we've got this add related table. And what this, I believe, is doing is this is showing us, it seems to me to be showing us both incoming references and outgoing references. You can see here I've got AP adjust. That's an incoming reference. If I look here, there's my AP adjust table. And then if I scroll down further, I have a count in the outgoing references. I don't have it in the incoming references. But if I come back here, I scroll down, I do have a count here as well. So this feature, which we've already had, does appear to be showing both incoming references and outgoing references. So let's say we use this account one based on the AP account ID. I can add this. Actually, I think do select. Let's add this. So it adds the table. Then I go to relations. It also added the join for me, and it put the fields down in here. And we're seeing that same information here. It's showing us the actual fields, not just the outgoing data access class reference. And let's do a quick test here. Let's test, this one was just one field, so we can see it used AP account ID and account ID. But let's do another one, and this time let's choose AP register. You can see it uses 2 field names for that. And I don't recall, let's see what happens. If I do select related table, yes, that's where it shows the join information once I click that. Then we'll click add. And let's see if it used both. Yep, it did. Use both fields in that join, and both fields were listed right here in the outgoing references. So that feature was there, but it's nice that it's also listing the incoming and the outgoing right here on the DAC Schema Browser screen. So I think that's it for the tour of this screen. Now I'd like to show what I think is the coolest part about this from a technical perspective. If I scroll up here, you'll see that I've got all these different namespaces. I've also got this one on the top called DTDW. And if I click on this, this is actually a custom data access class that's only in this Acumatica environment. And we can see it, if I open up that customization project screen again, it's done by this customization right here. So what's really interesting to me about this is that this is not just a manually done DAC schema browser. This is auto-generating itself based on my specific Acumatica environment, which I think is really cool from a technical perspective. Now let's put that theory to the test. So first thing I'm going to do is I want to come back here. Let's get rid of this, create another one. So I'm going to do a generic inquiry, and let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Let's look at this data access class, this custom data access class, and we'll use call ID. I'm not going to override the caption, and let's go ahead and put it on the UI, and let's take a look at it. So you'll see here that when I drop it on the generic inquiry, it's saying call ID, and that's the same name just because that's the way I created this data access class, same as the data access class field name or database field name, display name. They're different. But let's go into my customization project, and let's go in here and let's change this. So I'm going to call this let's even put some spaces in there, make it look a little nicer. Here's my display name, my call ID, and let's publish this. Wait for that to finish, and I'll go ahead and pause the video while this publishes. Okay, this is finished publishing. Let's close that. And first let's go to the schema browser. The display name was call ID. Let's refresh this. And look at that. I think that is really cool. So that is picking up live from my Acumatica environment any customizations that I might have, which I think is pretty cool. So let's see. wanted to look at that. Oh yeah, and then that's also killing two birds with one stone here. Let's point out that Acumatica has always done this, but just to prove that, you can see when I refresh my generic inquiry, it's using that default display. So it's now called my call ID. And that's why when you drop certain fields onto generic inquiries, you may have wondered, why does it change the display name even though I didn't set a caption? That's how it's doing it. It's coming out of the data access class definition. And so now with the DAC Schema Browser, we can actually see what all those display names are set to, which again, I think is really, really cool and really interesting. Now I want to end this by talking about yet another way you can use to access this DAC Schema Browser. You notice up here on the URL, all you need to do is put DAC Browser after your Acumatica URL. And then what you actually browse to also gets put in the URL. So if I were to come back to AP Invoice and click on this, you'll see up here, it does first I believe this is called the namespace, and then the actual data access class. So if you send someone a link, this hyperlink, it would take them to this specific page within the DAC Schema Browser. But you could just get rid of this stuff and put just DAC Browser after your Acumatica URL if you want to browse to it that way. And that's what I've done up here. I created a nice little bookmark in my web browser. I click on that and it takes me right to the DAC Schema Browser. So from a practical standpoint, this is probably how I personally am going to access it most of the time. Just bookmark the URL. But just to round off where we started, you can also access it Tools, DAC Schema Browser. You can also access it with Inspect Element. So I click on a field, now I've got a hyperlink, and I can also access it when I'm creating a generic inquiry. All my tables now are hyperlinks. Different ways to access it. At the end of the day, you've got this really cool DAC Schema Browser engine that's not just a manually created bunch of static web pages. This is a somehow smart tool that's live reading the information from the specific Acumatica environment that it's launched from. And I think that's probably why, if we go out to help.acumatica.com, you'll notice that right now I did ask someone at Acumatica, hey, is there a way to see the DAC Schema Browser in here? And I think I even tried this, but let's go ahead and try it on the fly. I think I tried doing this, and yeah, it's not available, at least not right now. Maybe they'll make it available, but I could see how maybe they won't, because of the fact that this is specific to your environment, and you'd just be getting a general Acumatica environment even if they were to add it to help.acumatica.com. So we'll see if we see it out there. For me, at least I have a nice easy way to bookmark it, and I have a nice way to jump in and browse the data access classes finally now in Acumatica.